As you by now know, Spark is a distributed computing framework that is especially efficient due to its use of memory as compared to Hadoop, which is more likely to use disk space. This is one of the main aspects that makes Spark so fast. In this lecture, we are going to install Spark and interact with it through its Python API, Pyspark, and get an overview of some of its syntax. So, just like with Hadoop, we begin by installing Java, which is the OpenJDK here. And then we can install our Spark, run a few configurations, and start a session. Now for our exploration with Spark, I will be downloading a cars dataset. And then the first thing we're going to do is perform some exploration. And if you've worked with pandas, much of the syntax will be very familiar. In particular, DF stands for data frame. You can read in a CSV just as we would with pandas. And this would be the equivalent of head, in which we see the first 5 rows of our dataset in pandas. We can look at the columns. We can select a specific column or multiple columns if we wish. We can add new columns. And we can perform operations such as concatenating columns, arithmetic operations if we want to, and almost anything we can think of that involves operating on the columns. You can rename them. You also have access to all the group by operations, which is something you might be familiar with from Excel in the form of pivot tables. In this case, for instance, we can group by country and then obtain the count. We can perform group by several factors, again, just as you would in a pivot table in Excel. We can drop columns. We can perform all sorts of filtering. For example, filter to a single value of a column, or do so with more complicated conditions. We have the distinct command, which allows us to pick distinct values. And these commands are also quite reminiscent of SQL. Order by, different ways of sorting. We can create unions of results or concatenate different data frames, much like with SQL, pandas, and Excel. And of course we have our joins, of which there are many types, and these are all available: inner, outer, left, right, and so on and so forth. And finally we also have views. So all this is to show you that it is quite easy to interact with Spark via Pyspark. The syntax is very similar to SQL, and this all allows you to perform your computations in a distributed manner while using very simple and abstracted syntax for great effectiveness.